Good morning, honorable educators, respect opposition, and ladies and gentlemen. Today, as the first speaker of the government team, I proudly stand in support of the motion. This House will mandate the educational institution in wealthy-developed nation with large population of international students pay a portion of the students' tuition to academic institutions in developing countries. So before I begin our arguments, let us first look at the reality happening today. So every year, millions of students from developed countries travel abroad to continue their studies. Students from countries like Indonesia, India, Philippines, and Nigeria choose to study in countries such as Australia, United Kingdom, Canada, and United States because these countries are known for having better education system, modern facilities, stronger research opportunities, and degrees that are more internationally recognized. But behind all of this, there is one important issue that people often ignore. So developed countries continue receiving high benefits from international students. While many universities in developing countries are still struggling with limited facilities, lack of funding, outdated technology, and weak educational support. So this creates a very unfair situation. So rich countries continue becoming stronger on education, while developing countries continue falling behind. That is actually why this motion is important. So as the government team, we believe that university in wealthy developed countries should contribute a small portion of international students' tuition fees to help support educational institutions in developed countries. So we are not asking developed countries to suffer losses. We are not asking them to give away all their money. So we are only asking for a small contribution in order to create a more balanced and fair global educational system. So ladies and gentlemen, our first argument is that developed countries already gain enormous profits from international students. International students are one of the biggest sources of income for universities developed countries. So they pay expensive tuition fees, and in many cases, international students pay much more than local students. Not only that, they also spend money on housing, food, transportation, healthcare, entertainment, and daily living expenses. So this means international students contribute not only to universities but also to the national economy. For example, countries like Australia and Canada earn billions of dollars every year from international education. Many universities even actively recruit students from developing countries because they know international students bring high financial benefits. So, however, while developed countries continue profiting from the system, universities in developed countries are still facing serious problems. Some schools still lack proper classrooms, some universities do not have enough books, laboratory equipment, or digital access. In some places, students will still struggle with an internet connection and limited educational opportunities. So we must ask, is it fair that wealthy institutions continue gaining so much while poorer institutions receive nothing? So we believe the answer is no. That is why sharing a small portion of tuition fees is a fair and reasonable step. So our second argument is reducing global educational inequality. So today the quality of educational is heavily influenced by where a person is born. Students in developed countries usually have access to modern classrooms, advanced technology, complete laboratories, and international exchange programs, and highly trained lecturers. Meanwhile, many students in developed countries still study in environments with very limited resources. Because of the inequality, talented students often feel forced to leave their countries just to get better educational opportunities abroad. So the problem is not everyone can afford the opportunity. So as a result, the quality educational becomes something only available for those with enough money. So this motion helps to reduce the gap. If a portion of tuition fees is dedicated to developed countries and universities, there can slowly improve their facilities, teacher qualities, and academic opportunities. So this means many students may eventually receive quality education without having to leave their countries. So education should not only belong to rich nation. Every student deserves access to good education regardless of their background or nationality. Our third argument is preventing brain drain. Brain drain happens when talented students from developed countries move abroad the education and later decide not to return home. While because developed countries often offer the better salaries, stronger career opportunities, safer working conditions, and better quality for life. So as a result, developing countries lose many talented people such as a doctor, engineers, teachers, scientists, and future leaders. And so meanwhile, developing countries continue benefiting from these skilled workers. So this creates an unhealthy cycle. Poor countries lose talent, rich countries gain talent, and inequality become even worse. So by improving educational institutions in developed countries, students will have better opportunities at home. Better universities can create stronger local research, better career preparation, and more confidence for students to build their future in their own countries. So this policy is not only about money, it is also about protecting the future development of poorer nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition may say this policy is unfair because universities earn the money themselves. But we must remember, these profits will not exist without international students, many of whom come from developed country. Therefore, asking a university to contribute a small percent is not punishment. It is simple a form of global responsibility. So the opposition may also say this policy could weaken a university in developed country, but realistic wealthy university already have a strong funding, advanced infrastructure, government support, and enormous yearly income. So a small contribution will not destroy their education system. However, for developing countries, even a small amount of funding can improve to thousands of student lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, this motion is ultimately about fairness. So, for too long, wealthy countries have continued benefiting for international students, while the developing countries remain left behind in educational development. Today, we are proposed a simple and reasonable solution. So a small redistribution that can create a positive impact. So with this policy, we can reduce educational inequality, improve university in developed country. So reduce brain drain and create a more balanced global education system. Because education should uplift all nations, not only to the richest one. So for all the reasons, this house proudly supports the motion. Thank you.